Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Light back with another YouTube video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing another DC MCU concept. And yeah, if you don't know what that is, check out the introductory video that is on my playlist for DC MCU concepts. But basically, I'm just replacing MCU movies with DC movies, and I'm trying to go in chronological order. But anyways, I think this is part 6, I believe. And it is going to be replacing Iron Man 2. So, the hero I picked to replace Iron Man 2, or Iron Man just in general, is Batman. So yeah, I've decided to call this Batman Vengeance. That's what I'm calling this. In terms of a comic book it's adapted from, I did pick to adapt a bit of Death in the Family a bit, as well as I took a little bit of pieces from Arkham Origins a little bit. So yeah, the big reason why I called it Batman Vengeance, other than that was a pretty cool name, I thought it was a pretty cool name at least, was actually because it's about vengeance basically. So yeah, in this movie, it's gonna be a bit of like introducing a lot of Batman's rogues, as well as growing some of the characters. Again, it's got to grow some of the characters, introducing a little bit of characters as well. Yeah, and this is the way I'm doing it. Sorry, not this is the way I'm doing it. Sorry about that. Yeah, so quickly we'll get into the cast and the plot of the movie. Actually, I realized this too. This is a movie where I took a lot of creative thinking. I think it's one of my favorite projects I wanted to work on throughout these whole movies, just because I wanted to make Death in the Family my own way. So yeah, it's not straight out of the comics or anything like that. I put my own spin on it. But don't worry, it won't be any stupid Titans adaptation um where Jason Todd's taking drugs from Scarecrow and he turns mild. Whatever happens, like it's not stupid like that. At least I hope it isn't. But yeah. Uh. So yeah, continuing in this. All right. So first of all, this is taking place about a year and a half slash 2 years ish after of the events of Avengers. Or sorry, not Avengers. Justice League 1. I said Avengers by accident. I'm thinking in MCU terms, but this does take place a little bit. I did change up the chronology a bit, where I flipped around Iron Man 2 and the Avengers, but that was it. So yeah, at this time, in terms of characters' ages, I mean, Batman's pretty much like a middle-aged man. But here's where it gets a little bit cool. Is we start off the movie and we see Batman's basically going and fighting off some crooks. Then we see a new Robin come out from behind him, and he helps. This will be known as Jason Todd. Now, Jason Todd at the time right now, he is probably 16 years old ish. I'll say he was basically turned to be Robin within the time period of the events of Justice League 1 and Batman. Because if you remember back in my Justice League video, I think I said Nightwing was, or sorry, Dick Grayson was about like 17-ish. He would have been like 18, 19. By this time, by this movie, he'd be 19, maybe 20. So he'd be pretty old. Not pretty old, but he'd be enough to the point he's an adult. Now we see that happen, and we see this new Robin, and obviously it's not Dick Grayson. Yeah, so that happens, and then we get introduced to the new Robin, Jason Todd. And then we end up seeing Dick Grayson sporting his new Nightwing costume, as he has now been named Nightwing. So yeah, that's how we get an introduction into that. And then we eventually start meeting some of his villains. We end up seeing, when they're fighting, we end up seeing Killer Croc. He ends up getting revealed as one of the villains, but he's not meant to be a big villain. He's just meant to be a very minor villain. So he would be fighting uh, the three of them, and they would fight, and that would happen. Now, for villain wise, for big main villain, I plan on it to be Deathstroke. He will be the main villain of this. I wanted to do a bit something different. I mean, a lot of people must have been thinking, oh, you should put Joker as a villain, especially because you're doing Death in the Family. Now, again, I wanted to make my own kind of twist, so that's the big reason into why I did it the way I did it. With also frequent few appearances from Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and Deadshot, as well as Killer Croc, which is mentioned. And we will also get introduced to Green Arrow. In terms of casting decisions, I kept the same two, of course, which is Dylan O'Brien as Dick Grayson / now Nightwing. I'll just call him Nightwing now. And Jake Gyllenhaal is still Batman. In terms of Jason Todd, I decided to choose Josh Hutcherson, the guy from Hunger Games. He's a pretty good actor, and I feel like he could play Jason Todd decently well, honestly. Honestly, I was faced with a decision, especially too. I really wanted Jensen Ackles to play him, but I mean, Jensen Ackles is a bit too old to be playing a teenage Jason Todd. So I was faced with like two decisions here. I still haven't made my final decision yet, but drop your opinions of what you think about this. I was thinking maybe I could recast him later on into maybe Jensen Ackles when he grows up and becomes Red Hood or whatever. Or I could keep Josh Hutcherson. I honestly am not sure right now. I don't know if it'd be weird if I recasted him because it just kind of makes no sense, especially if I don't write this properly. When a big reveal happens, it's because people will be like, "Who was that?" And it just be like, "I'm supposed to be Jason Todd." It's just kind of stupid that way. So I'm not sure right now. In terms of Scarecrow, this is an underrated pick. It's Bill Skarsgård. He's gonna be playing him. And then Mr. Freeze, I'm getting him to be played by Giancarlo Esposito. And then Deadshot will be played by Will Smith, actually getting his same person who plays him in this first Suicide Squad movie, and the same person who plays Deathstroke, Joe Manganiello, will play Deathstroke again. And then Killer Croc, the same person who plays him in the Suicide Squad, Adwell and Noyo Ajabe. I might have just completely butchered his name. My complete apologies for that. But yeah, pretty much the same guy who plays him in the Suicide Squad, or Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad, the second one. Yeah, so that's basically the cast. In terms of development and how I plan to do this. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to say Green Arrow is supposed to get introduced as well. He's going to be played by Charlie Hunnam. So he's supposed to be introduced. Okay, so now how are these villains fitting into the roles? So what I intended to do was basically, a lot of these villains are already kind of established. Like, we would get a bit of a backstory for Mr. Freeze. That's reasonable, but I mean, Scarecrow and Killer Croc would be already essentially established. Now, what I really wanted to do for this is really make all the villains except for Deathstroke to be kind of like minor villains, but Mr. Freeze is going to play a big role in this. Now, really what I meant to happen was that all these villains would team up with each other, and they would all try and fight Batman on a certain day, known as like Vengeance Day, where basically Deathstroke is seeking revenge for their past and everything as they were training together and stuff like that. I'm just making up some stuff. I know this is obviously not 100% true in the comics and everything, but I mean, he feels as if it's personal. It's his biggest feat, trying to beat up Batman and whatnot. So yeah, Deathstroke is basically trying to beat him up while having all these characters as kind of like obstacles, as he just broke most of them out from jail and stuff like that. Like Killer Croc would be broken out of jail in the movie and everything. All these characters will be broken out of jail. Now, how it's going to work is Batman, you're going to see some flaws, especially when it comes down to Jason Todd. I plan on writing a little bit like Batman would be like something like he really wouldn't want Jason Todd to be fighting these villains like this, but Jason Todd basically acts like a stowaway and comes and he's worried that Jason would die. Uh, yeah, he's worried about Jason. He might die or something. He's like very worried and petrified that that could happen. And then eventually, Jason, of course, he stows away. He hides behind Batman, fights these villains. They're basically fighting him like tournament style kind of thing, uh, with all the characters fighting him. Then finally comes down to Deathstroke. Now here's where it gets a little crazy is when Deathstroke literally uh, ends up killing Jason Todd. He ends up like Jason Todd just he's just like he's sick and tired of living in Batman's shadow in terms of he just had to basically hide behind him when all these other villains he could take those villains. But Deathstroke is something else. He ends up going he runs right after Deathstroke and Deathstroke stabs him right through the chest and kills him. He ends up dying. Batman's just kind of mad and stuff. Like, obviously, he would be mad, kind of sad. Uh, yeah, so Jason Todd is dead by the end of the movie, basically. So he's dead. Um, and then, yeah, everything happens with Jason Todd. He's dead, basically. Yeah, that's the end of him. Then Batman and Deathstroke fight it out to the duel. They basically fight it out crazily. When ending up in the end, they're fighting basically over like a pit of like broken glass. Something could easily stab into your chest. They're fighting, and then eventually Deathstroke pushes both of them off the roof. As Batman's like trying to punch him, beat him up, and stuff like that. Obviously, what he just did, and Deathstroke is like doing the same. All of a sudden, Batman realizes what happens, turns around, he uses his grappler, grapples onto a building, and then all of a sudden, Deathstroke just straight up hits the ground and dies. So Deathstroke is dead. Now, I wanted to also notice this is important as well. Scarecrow. In order to beat Scarecrow, Batman literally dropped a building on him, critically injuring him. Not disfiguring him of sorts, maybe a few little scars there and there, but it's not disfiguring him. And yeah, that I purposely say that it's setting up for another movie. Now, Mr. Freeze is where it gets a little crazy. He locks him back up in Arkham. Uh, and the partial reason Mr. Freeze is really in this will also prove it's a backstory for him, is everything with his wife and everything. And then he ends up just being like kind of a void of emptiness in a sense. And he ends up going back to jail or whatever. So, yeah, and then Deadshot gets beat and everything. Now, how does Green Arrow get introduced into this? Green Arrow gets introduced. Actually, the way it happens is, for example, Batman's like going around the place, and then eventually Green Arrow, who's actually trained before with Deathstroke, he's also had some history with Deadshot before. They actually cross paths, and he explains everything and whatever. But Batman, being Batman, doesn't really trust him too much, and then they go through a whole thing, and then eventually, like, they realize to trust him, especially when Green Arrow ends up helping fight Deadshot in the end. He ends up helping them out, and plus there's a bunch of escaped convicts everywhere because Deathstroke literally just blew up a prison wall and let everyone free. So Green Arrow basically is helping clean up the city. Same with Nightwing. So this is kind of like a Batman and Friends type movie where he's literally helping out. And then finally, in the end, we end up seeing basically a funeral for Jason Todd. Yeah, we end up seeing a funeral for Jason Todd. Like, all the superheroes that we know right now that are introduced are there. A few Green Lanterns are there too, mourning the death. And just everybody's there. In like a private type of funeral, just kind of super people and stuff like that. We end up seeing a memorial put up for Jason Todd and everything. Yeah, and then that's when we see in the post credit scene, we end up seeing this. We end up seeing a mysterious figure emerges and grabs Jason Todd's body, and we don't know what's gonna happen. That's basically what happens, and we end up seeing. This is at the very end after the whole funeral scene. We end up getting like music montage. We're seeing stuff, and we see Scarecrow still alive, and he looks hell bent. Like he looks very mad, ready to raise carnage and stuff. He's very mad. And that's basically it. That's basically it for Batman Vengeance or Batman 2. I meant this technically to be like a long movie. Technically, it'll be over a 2-hour movie easy. You could even see now. This is a 15-minute video. Sorry for it being that long, but there's a lot of stuff to pack into it. So yeah, just wait until we get into like Infinity War and Endgame. Those will probably be like 30-minute videos. I honestly don't know. Well, anyways, that's pretty much it though. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.